Welcome to the Startup Grind.
What are all the businesses you're involved in, and what do they do?
I could probably talk for a lot longer on all the businesses that I'm no longer involved in that never made any money. But today I'm involved in Hong Kong Visa Centre, which is an immigration business, and Vidochacha, which is the content production business which grew out of developing content for the Hong Kong Visa Centre that represents our essential sort of free content proposition via the web, via the websites that you know.
How long have you been doing visa work?
Probably did my first immigration case in 1994. I came straight out of law school, London School of Economics, and started a legal consulting business here, 1993, and was doing kind of all the normal things that non-contentious legal things that solicitors do, but I was charging prices that were less than solicitors were charging, and I was basically selling my time, which was a rubbish business model. So while I was sort of, coming to grips with a real business that I felt was going to be sensible over the long haul, I developed expertise in immigration because clients were asking for it. And when you go to law school, they basically teach you how to find the law if somebody asks you a question in relation to it. So at the very first, I was asked to incorporate companies and advise on trademarks and labour law issues and what have you. And eventually somebody said, well, can you do visas as well? And I said, yeah, of course I can. They're going to just go down to the Supreme Court Library and pull up the definitive guide to Hong Kong immigration and sort of, work it up from that. But when I went to the law library, there was nothing there. So I had to make it up as I went along, and realised in time that firstly I was actually sort of quite good at it, and secondly that nobody else was doing it, so I should specialise in it. And I made the decision to specialise in 95, I think it was.
What was the turning point in your business, and how did you achieve this?
I read a book in 94, I guess it was, by Al Rees called Focus. And from that I learned that I should concentrate on one thing and one thing only, and I got rid of all the extraneous stuff, which was a big decision at the time because it represented a large part of our revenue, but I wanted to just get a shot of that and focus purely on immigration. So I did that, so 94, about a year and a half later I wrote a book on it. And I wrote the book for two reasons. Firstly, because I had a client at the time who was Japanese, and she had a PR company, and most of our clients at that time were Japanese. And she said to me that if you want to become an expert, or deemed expert in the Japanese community, you write a book on something. So I thought, okay, I'll write the book on immigration, get it translated into Japanese, and I'll achieve that objective. And at the same time, I needed to think about how to scale the business because I was intending to hire fresh grads to do immigration work, but I needed to be able to teach them what I knew. So by documenting it in the form of a book, I would achieve that outcome. So I wrote the book, got it translated into Japanese, and just about the time that we were about to publish, she went bust in the Asian economic crisis. So I never published her for it. So I had another Japanese client at the time who was one of Hong Kong's first internet service providers, and he said to me, have you seen this thing called the internet? What's the internet? So they showed me this, and I thought, right, this is amazing. There's mileage in this. Not quite sure how it's all going to work, because what I saw didn't particularly impress me at that time, because it was just basically brochureware. There was no compelling reason to be on the web apart from the fact that it was sort of novel. So, as I said, it was just kind of like this advertising, all these companies talking about themselves, and I thought, well, if I've got this book, why don't I stick it on the internet and then basically kill a couple of birds with one stone. Firstly, I could, through the web, use the material to reach people before they arrived in Hong Kong, which meant that I could then get past the South China Morning Post and the Hong Kong Post and also the others sort of who were competing for that dollar. And at the same time reach into the people before they make all the mistakes, because a lot of people do things before they make their applications, and they arrive and they get involved in things, and to sort of take a story after the fact in the immigration department sometimes can be troublesome, because you've got to unravel problems that they've made for themselves. So if you can catch them before they even arrive in Hong Kong, you can control what they do from an immigration perspective. So that really solved a big problem for me. And between 1996 and 2000, it kind of made me, really. It was a revolution.
How did you plant the seed of your misfortunes between 2000 and 2010?
I didn't think about what I was doing then as content marketing, if you will. I was just using a resource that I already had, and I stumbled into it, I would say.
Right. Well, of course, the term didn't even exist back then. But that's great. So you were doing content marketing almost 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So what happened after that? So after 2000, how did the business go?
Then,
there?
Through the presence that I sort of built through the internet, I was approached by a US business that was the biggest on the park then, doing passport and travel visa services in the US, selling US passports and say visas to particular countries that US nationals need to have to go visit, like Turkey, for example, at that time. They'd have, say, Coca-Cola as their customer, and because 40–50% of Americans don't have passports, they had this business where they would go to Coca-Cola. This executive is going to Turkey. They apply for his passport. They take it onto the Turkish consulate or embassy, get the Turkish visa endorsed in the passport, and then deliver it to him at his desk. They had a fantastic clientele, but they weren't selling them what they thought they really could sell them, which was employment visa and other types of immigration service into those jurisdictions. So they went out and they looked for the best-in-class providers around the world, and then forged relationships with them. And they came into my office one day and said, "Hey, we would like you to be our partner." So I rubbed my hands in glee and said, "Yeah, sure, I'll be your partner." And sometime later, much to my chagrin, I did a deal with them that in 2006, quite a few years later, unraveled to the point where I effectively handed over the keys to the business that I built up all of those years and didn't get compensated for it. But that was my mistake. I was stupid then. So.
Well, I've been there too. I had a similar experience. So 2006, things took a turn for the worst, and then how did you rebuild after that?
Oh, well, I'm a bit of a riverboat gambler, so I've got to go back a bit as well. So in 97, 98, I took a lot of the money that I made in the early days in immigration and put it into a medical devices business. And we took that from an acquisition that was basically a diamond in the dirt type acquisition. It was a business unit from a publicly listed company that developed a really interesting technology as part of their military defense research activities. And it involved the use of high frequency microwaves to achieve very precise tissue destruction. So we picked that business up. I put a lot of money into it. We raised a lot of money. We got it up to a $200 million valuation at one point, and then the final fundraise that we needed to get us to profitability after having got FDA approvals and got it registered in Europe and also in Australia, and placed some machines here in Hong Kong, also in Singapore, in Australia, and New Zealand. We essentially needed to get this extra batch of money and take its profitability. The date on the fundraise document was December 31st, 2000, and if you can stretch your mind back that far, that was when the dot bomb happened. Yep. And we couldn't raise any money after that. And so we managed to sort of keep the business together, holding the essential value together right the way through till we were able to negotiate an emergency funding, and that emergency funding had a closing date of the end of September 2001, and they happened to be based in the World Trade Center. So when the Twin Towers fell, the business fell as well, and I lost all my interest in it.
Wow, that's amazing. I hadn't heard that story before.
Yeah, it's my microsilage years. And then in the interim, I moved my young family from Hong Kong to Western Australia, and in order to facilitate that, I needed an immigration vehicle, and so I put $1.5 million of my own Australian dollars of my own money and other people's money into a software business called Orla, which was basically turned Microsoft Outlook into a really usable piece of software. And we developed that for 7 years, learned a great deal about workflow and how people work in a modern workplace. And unfortunately, the Asian economic crisis hit, and not the Asian economic, the global financial crisis hit. It shows how old I am. Yeah, the global financial crisis hit, and we couldn't make any progress after that. So I had to shutter that and be done with another loss under my belt.
How did you achieve your clear competitive advantage so quickly and readily?
So in 2006, I then got picked up by the world's largest corporate immigration firm, and they asked me to work with them, which I did for 2.5 years on a consulting basis. So that was an important time for me because it gave me unique insight into what is now my biggest competitor. And because I reported to the global board, I know exactly kind of what their strategies are and what they're all about. And because I was a founding partner of the world's second largest corporate immigration firm, I know what they're all about as well. So it uniquely equipped me to go into this business with insights that allow me to compete against them in a way that they probably didn't expect that I would do.
So when did you launch the website Hong Kong Visa GEEZA, and was this your first one?
That was the third website, actually. In 2010, when I was almost bankrupt, I said to my business partner, it's time to go back into the immigration business. But I was living in Australia, and I didn't have the means to come back to Hong Kong and set up a regular sort of bricks and mortar type immigration practice. I knew that I wanted to use content because we'd been successful between 1996 and 2000. So I rewrote the Hong Kong Visa Handbook first, and that was the first website that went up. And then I had the foundation content, and it was a case of, right, what is the service delivery model given that I'm in Australia and the clients are in Hong Kong? So it forced me to think about how to deliver this service via the web. So then we built the Hong Kong Visa Centre website. And after about 1.5 years, I realised we were missing a piece, and that's where the Hong Kong Visa GEEZA website came in. And the Hong Kong Visa GEEZA was called the Hong Kong Visa GEEZA because it's an idea virus. And it also gave me the ability to I could reach into the community by answering people's questions and keep the fundamental content that we have on Hong Kong immigration live and updated, because people ask me questions that are of the age, I'm able to answer them. And I'm able to really easily and quickly just keep the material, as I say, really up to date. So the Visa GEEZA website was the third one in the batch.
Most people are nervous about starting video production and being on screen themselves. How did you get over that?
Well, my wife says I'm a natural showman, so it wasn't really that difficult for me. But you see, when I wrote the first version of the Hong Kong Visa Handbook, the internet didn't give you the ability to deliver feature-rich content. And I knew that in 2010, 2011, we could deliver feature-rich content. So it was a case of, okay, how can I use really all the sort of content resources to best effect? And because I'm not afraid of standing in front of a camera, I've spoken on the radio for years and years and years, and been quite a prolific public speaker. Just was a natural adjunct for me just to say, right, okay, what do I need to know about video to do it myself? But I went out and I looked for service providers who could give me cost-effective video. I was prepared to invest into it. But 4 or 5 years ago, and it's probably still the same today, the providers are all they're all artists. They all think that just because they own a video camera, and they've got a bit of equipment, they should be charging $10,000-$15,000 for a little bit of work here, a little bit of work there. That just didn't sort of resonate with me. So I wanted replicable content. I wanted to be able to sort of produce it consistently. And the conversations I was having with providers just didn't give me any means of being confident that I could deliver on a video proposition. So I was forced to get to grips with it. $500 eBay, cheap camera, lights. These lights actually from that batch. Some backdrops: green screen backdrop, white backdrop, black backdrop. $150 for an an iPhone teleprompter you buy through eBay. Software is free. All right, write some scripts. Okay. What's the best maximum amount of time that people want to listen to me drone on about something? And a minute and a half. So then just develop content on that basis, and video just came to me naturally because it was cheap and easy to produce.
What lessons have you learned along the way in regards to video marketing?
I would say experimentation took the form of just constantly improving as I got more and more resources. Mm-hmm. So it's not as though I came up with a unique and interesting way to do video cheaply from the get-go. I was just making it up as I went along, and by observing what I produced and realizing that I could improve it, it was a case of, well, let's just sort of improve it, and then that naturally takes you onto wanting a better mic, takes you onto perhaps doing green screen work and paying somebody else to do the color chroming, and then thinking about the quality of the camera and sort of just incrementally moving on. So as we earned through the videos and the content that we developed, it was a case of, right, let's just put more money back into it and develop a better content proposition. So that's how we improve as we go, and still are, in fact.
Now, where were you shooting this video when you were first starting out?
At home.
Just at home?
At home in Western Australia, yeah. And then 3 years ago, when I kind of moved back to Hong Kong full time, because I was flying backwards and forwards most of the time, and I was by necessity needing to produce the content in Australia because I had the space to do it. Now I'm spending more time in Hong Kong. It's a case of, right, how am I going to produce content if I haven't got the means to do it in my little apartment in Wan Chai? Mm-hmm. Well, I really need to think about opening a proper video production studio. So that's where Video Chacha came in.
What do you hope to get out of these videos in your production house?
Being a systems guy, I contrived a business model, a brand and a business model. I thought, okay, understanding what my needs for video were when I first started, and knowing that I couldn't access that capability, I'm going to produce that capability for people. And like everything, when you try something, it doesn't work, you scratch your head and you wonder why. And what I've come to understand is that you take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So people, I think, intuitively know about video, and as you alluded to earlier, they're a bit sort of scared about it. They're not ready to sort of grasp the nettle because it's perhaps too hard. So that model that I originally developed didn't really pan out in the way that I thought it was going to pan out. So ultimately what I did was I turned the studio and the capability into an asset in of itself to promote the immigration business. Mm-hmm. So, we sponsor things like this, for example, and we try and give prizes out like we are doing tonight for people. Mm-hmm. And just use it to augment our relationships and develop goodwill, because we've got the materials, we've got the assets anyway, so why not share them widely and make them available as cost effectively as we possibly can to people, for those people that are interested in it. But I've been surprised, the overwhelming majority of people are just scared of video and just don't understand, even after they see what we're doing on the web, don't get it, aren't seeking to emulate us. Because if you emulate us, this is a surefire win as far as I'm concerned, right? Depends on your niche, of course, and immigration is special in of itself. But if you have the means to reach out to the people that you want to have relationships with, and you showcase your knowledge and your know-how and deliver real value, and in our case, help answer questions and help solve problems, you forge relationships, and out of forging relationships, good things happen. So we use the studio very much for that now these days. We have increasingly a growing body of clients, as well as some of the larger, more established companies are starting to understand that we have a video proposition that's more cost effective than what's in the marketplace. So we're getting some of that business in now. But whilst I was hoping that it was going to be a profit center, essentially what I really wanted to do was just be able to sell enough video services each month so that I was covering the cost of my own content production, so that it really didn't cost me anything.
What are your recommendations for getting started in video production?
To start, ask yourself, what are the top 100 questions that anybody ever asks you about your business or what you do? And then write an answer to those questions. And try and write an answer that's going to be no longer than a minute and a half. And plug it into a teleprompter in front of the camera and then answer that question. And if you do that, you've got 100 pieces of content. 100 pieces of content should give you 1 year's worth of material for your website if you're going to go down the content marketing path. Definitely, absolutely, definitely YouTube. A, because it's the world's second biggest search engine, and B, because you want Google to understand the totality of what you're doing, and if it's on YouTube, you're empowering Google to know what's going on. So just upload them. Just make sure that you've got the title describing adequately whatever it is that somebody might be searching for, so that you'll come up once they search in the search box there, and just add a short bit of text that effectively describes what the video is all about, so that can get picked up and indexed as well.
Mm-hmm.